Welcome back, listeners. This is Learning from Friends. My name is Cade Curtis, your tour guide on this lovely journey. Every single day, all day, every day, whenever you get the opportunity to learn, build on it, grow from it. And today I'm doing part 2 with my buddy Paron, that we're sitting back here in Athens, Georgia, the classic city, to talk about another awareness situation that needs to be brought to the attention of the entire world, the entire United States. It's just a big issue here. But before we get started, as usual, I have my mom's quote of the day to help brighten up the light here. And this one today is from Helen Keller. Although the world is full of suffering, it is also full of overcoming it, which I think is perfect for talking about today that we're hitting into. And the episode, again, welcome back, Paron. We are discussing his insights into another continually overlooked problem that's faced here in the United States. It's the school to prison pipeline. Is a disturbing national trend wherein youth are being funneled out of public schools and into the juvenile and criminal legal systems. Many of these youth are Black or brown and have disabilities or histories of poverty, abuse, neglect, and would really benefit from any additional support and resources instead of being isolated, punished, and pushed out. So Paron, welcome back to the podcast. It is beyond an honor to have you come back to this podcast for a second episode and bring awareness to this critical issue that is being overlooked in our community. And before we get started, perhaps, do you want to do a recap from our previous episode of what we discussed real quick, just for those that maybe missed it or wanted to go, hey, go back and listen to this real quick.
Again, appreciate you, Cade, for having me on the show. You know, the struggles being a Black male entrepreneur in the South and pushing as hard as you can to make your name known and leave a legacy and just establish a position. So that's what we went over last week, and a little bit about ourselves and myself and yourself and how we met each other, whatever. But I guess we're talking about a little something different this week, huh?
Yeah. And take the moment, step back, listen to that episode. If not, that is okay. You're missing out on some great content if you do, but we're glad that you're here on this one, be able to sit here with us. But as we go through these questions, something I want you to think about. I want you to think from a perspective of a parent, guardian, relative, student, teacher, or friend. Everyone will have their own opinion, which is okay. That is perfectly fine. Just because it's different doesn't always mean it's wrong. So please consider all this from these different perspectives as we go forward with this episode. So Paron, what discipline policies and practices have you noticed as your kids have been going through school?
Good or bad?
Either way.
Either way, I've noticed a bunch of them, good and bad. I would say the good thing about the schools in Athens, Clarke County, for the most part, they try to be personable. They try to give as much assistance as possible and try to understand where the kids are coming from, the type of communities they're coming from. For the most part, the teachers that we've had to deal with our kids being in school, I can't say I had an issue with any of them. They were pretty well-rounded teachers, and we focused on our kids, just their end result. They wanted to see them succeed, and it seemed like that they were that with each individual child.
And that's what goes a long way.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, you're never in the classroom, so there might be favorites or something like that. But for the most part, the teachers that I've had to deal with, they seem like they wanted each individual child to succeed.
Have you found that this has been worked really well, and has there wound up being anything that has really made something unfair for a student inside a school, say per se?
Unfair? I mean, you're always going to have the unfair aspect because everybody's not going to learn on the same level at the same speed. You're going to have, I think it was, and I'm not for sure exactly what policy it was, but when they took like the special ed kids and the super bad behavior kids and they let them stay in the classrooms where the kids for the most part were focusing and trying to learn. And so that was probably a bad thing or an unfair thing, because if you have 20 kids in the classroom, 15 of them are trying to learn and they're focused on their studies, but you got 5 of them who are cutting up and causing a ruckus and you can't put them anywhere else. It's a little unfair to the students, definitely unfair to the teachers. So that was probably like one thing that I always felt as though that should have been something that should have been done.
Now, we're going to shift gears here for a second and really kind of start diving into the topic of, should a student, when there's a discipline issue going on, should a student ever be arrested at school? If so, how do you handle that inside a school system whenever there's a cop that kind of comes in? Because that changes an entire game when a cop walks into a school.
If you're talking about elementary school, no, I don't think any elementary school child should be arrested like in school in front of in front of their peers. Detained, calm down, yeah, but arrested, no. Junior high, late years of junior high, high school, if need be, if the threat is that serious and it takes handcuffs and proper restraint, then yeah, no question. If something were to happen when my kids were in school of a certain age and they did something, and I mean, if something was going on or whatever, and I felt as though the child should have been arrested, then no question, like definitely. I don't think that would give the school a bad look if it was necessary, because you have to think about the safety of the children, the teachers, and just basically all parties involved.
Yeah, it's very true. To help provide some insight more into our topic today, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of information here that I was able to do and find from the studies from the proceedings of National Academy of Science, which is also known as PNAS, which is showing that African American students tend to receive harsher punishments for less serious behaviors and are more often punished for subjective offenses such as loitering or disrespect. Similarly, students with disabilities are more than twice as likely to receive out-of-school suspensions as students with no disabilities. And LGBTQ youth are more likely than their heterosexual peers to be suspended or expelled. Why do you think this is a harsh reality facing our school systems right now, Paron?
Is it right now? Or is it always?
That's true. It's been always, but right now it's continuing. That's the thing. It's continuing.
Right? Well, history will always repeat itself. And when you look at the justice system, the school system is a lot like the justice system as far as harsher punishments for minorities and whatnot, less rights for different community groups. And it's just all about sort of like what we spoke about the last episode, the ideology that is throughout the hierarchy of the school. And it's just the way things have been. It's definitely not a right thing. It's a stereotype that even though people say they don't pay attention to it, they do.
Yes.
Let's say you have 5 teachers, 2 of them are old school in a sense, 3 of them are progressive, and an African-American kid and a white kid gets into a fight. And those 5 teachers were involved in breaking the fight up. The 2 old-timey teachers, their voice will be heard more so, and they'll push for that black kid to have a harsher punishment, or well, he started the fight or something like that. He or she started the fight, and they will drown out those 3 progressive teachers just because of, like I said, the ideology and the thought process that is through the hierarchy of the school system and the justice system. It's kind of crazy that a thought process and the ideology can overshadow numbers of people saying, well, this is not right. This shouldn't be done, but it happens all the time.
Unfortunately, it's a very true statement that it does happen. And I see it from the different schools that I've worked in over the years. And it's unfortunate that it continues. But why are we seeing this school to prison pipeline? Why is it a issue? Why are we talking about this in this episode?
It has everything to do with just the whole mass incarceration in America. And it's something that needs to change. Yes, violence in all communities need to stop.
Yes, agreed.
Crime definitely needs to be just put to some type of slow pace. I've noticed that as I've gotten older, even being from a crime city like Philadelphia, and I love my city with all my heart, but it is heavily saturated with crime. But today, it's like it's so much senseless and pointless crime, right? That the mass incarceration thing is like, it's pushed now. Like so many people push it, and it starts from when the kid is in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. And if they feel as though that this will be a problem child, then that record of his or hers will follow them.
Yeah, from the whole way up.
Yeah, from the whole way up. Your teachers and other people will approach you counselors and all that like you're a problem child, like your issue.
I hate when that happens. Whenever a student walks in my classroom, and I get us from a previous year, like, hey, as a heads up, Jimmy's a problem.
Yeah, right.
You better watch out for him. He walks in my classroom, like, where are you getting this information from?
Where's this energy coming from?
Yeah.
But when that child is already expecting an issue and they already know that the next teacher is going to look at me like, and they're and then that pushes on. And by 12th grade, they already have an issue with authority. If they get to 12th grade, if they don't drop out of 9th or 10th grade, they already are expected to be in some sort of trouble. And it's like it was guided because nobody paid attention to their cries that, okay, I'm having an issue at home or I have no home. And
a lot of people don't see that.
I'm living with this person, I'm living with that person. And so they push them through, they reprimand them without seeing what's going on. And like I said, by the time they get to an adolescent age, teenage or young adult, then they really have nowhere else to go but to prison because they've already been conditioned to, like I said, I'm a person who's going to question authority, but I have a certain amount of respect for authority. They have no respect for authority. It's always a clash because they've been clashing with authority since they were in 3rd grade. And so regardless of what it is they may do, driving without a license, driving intoxicated, something like that, they have not been taught properly. And so this is what happens. And you see so many of them throughout generations, throughout weeks, days, months. You can have a class of, your 12th grade class could be 400 at the top of the year. And by the time you get to graduation time, it's 370, 300. A lot of people don't make it to that finish line.
That's one of the biggest struggles of seeing in a high school setting, seeing the start, as you said, the start of the year to the end of the year.
Definitely.
And what happened along that way, that disconnection. And you may have someone that has been a senior or junior for 3 or 4 years, finally get to graduate, and they may be 20, 21, and the doors are being shut to them 21 years old. Like 21 years old, they're shut off. The first day that they are automatically 21, they got to be out the door.
Got to be out the door.
And it's unfortunate seeing that we, in the United States, we are the highest incarcerated country in the world. And you can add up other countries that you're looking at, and it's still piled together. We're still higher. And you look at China and India, we have 360 plus million people in our country right now. You look at places like China, 1.3 billion plus. And then you're looking at India, 1.2 billion plus. 360.
Yeah.
1.3.
Yeah.
1.2. We're still more.
It makes no sense. But we're the nation of that, though. We're the nation of incarceration. We're the nation of crime. And we put people in prison for doing what the nation was built off of doing, off of blood and contradicting ourselves. But was it about change when we created this nation? Was it about change?
Question.
We are the most incarcerated, and it's a sad situation. But I don't think that we take mental health as serious as we should, because
that is a true statement.
If we did, we wouldn't have so many incarcerated. But because we don't, we feel as though, okay, they do drugs, let's go ahead and put them in jail. If they steal, let's go ahead and put them in jail. If they drink too much, let's go ahead and put them in jail. When it comes to drunk drivers and all that or whatever, and vehicular homicide is a very serious situation.
Yes, it is.
They should be in jail for the rest of their lives, no question. But you have to get down to the bottom of addiction. You have to get down to the bottom of mental health. And putting them in jail, it's not going to help. When somebody is raised, and not even raised by your parents, but their grandmother who is 79 can barely get
She's
up
having
and
to take
walk.
her time to support.
Support, and she has to raise 2 teenage boys growing up in the inner city, and these teenage boys have to walk to school every day and see all type of just bad and some good temptation and just all type of bad shit taking place around them. And they see this from 10 to 13, and by the time they're 14 years old, their grandmother is 80 plus, and they have themselves to count on and grow up. Nobody's seeing that the struggles that they had to go through, so they want to put them in jail because they're out and they're fucking up for lack of a better term.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
instead of saying, okay, well, grandma's this age, they had no guidance, so forth and so on. And so they were raising themselves. What kid at 13, 14 wants to go to school, deal with teachers, so forth and so on?
Have that street knowledge, understand what's something that's bad,
You
what's something
know.
that's not. Hey, I just need to make some money to be able to pay medical
Exactly.
bills that are killing. I need to keep the power on.
Exactly.
And so they get trapped into some of these situations.
It's trapped in a situation, and then our justice system doesn't care about that. We go ahead and build a jail. We'll go ahead and put them in jail. And it's a bad thing. And it's a bad thing across the board because we do not try to get down to the bottom of what is going on. And we won't spend any money on trying to figure out what's going on. We'll send billions of dollars to other countries to fight war and whatnot, but we are fighting one of the biggest wars right here in our own country with poverty and the school to prison pipeline, like we're talking about now, homelessness, equal rights. We have so many wars at our doorstep, but we're sending so much money other places. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, it's kind of counterproductive of you're the world, the home of the free, and trying to protect this, but you have so many people that are completely overlooked in their own areas. And another one that's highly an issue is the homelessness population with the mental illness. On the streets, you have middle schoolers and high schoolers that are having to, as I said, live on the streets sometime in order to survive. And that's just perpetuated for the rest of their life. They're going to school and they're hungry and people pick on them. And as they're getting picked on, they're going to lash back because they don't feel safe there. They're dropping out. There's a dropout rate there that's coming heavily. And then when people are getting to the prison system, they're picking up more bad habits at times that they didn't have, or they're not making it out of prison. I have a previous episode that we did earlier with my friend for Lion Life nonprofit, where he goes into working with GED programs and working with these people in jails. Not every jail is lucky to have that. Not every jail is being able to provide that same aid to teaching these kids to have these life skills when they get out of jail. And some of them are coming out from the system and being thrown into schools that are not a regular education school system. And they're being considered, they're throwing them as an outcast themselves as well. As you said earlier, they have a rep from third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, middle school, high school. Say they were in the juvenile detention center at middle school, got back out, came into school in high school. School districts are going to go, nope, we don't want you in here. We don't want you coming into our school and causing more problems. They don't know what's happened there. And that's really unfortunate that we don't have protection for that. And we don't have an understanding for it. And I think there's more out there that we can do.
I don't think, I'm going to be honest with you, for a lot of places, a lot of school districts across the country, I don't think they want to make time for it.
It's hard.
Yeah, I don't think they want to make time for it. It's the same thing with the court system. To make time for it would be to slow up money. And you're going to make more money and get more money poured into your state if you have more prisoners than you do freemen. That's a sad thing because you get free labor from your prisoners. So with that being said, I just don't think they want to make time for it. It's not about how can we make time for it. We can do everything in our power to try to make time for it, but the powers that be, will they sit down with your normal society people and say, okay, let's all come to the table and figure out how we can change this.
That's true. And one of the things that needs to be done is training in general, have that opportunity to get that training of teachers, administrators, other staff within the school district on all the different levels to be able to work and understand how to combat this. What trainings do you think, your suggestions that we could maybe be able to do to provide some training for these administrators, these teachers, nurses in school districts?
I mean, I guess it's a bunch of different type of training that the teachers and the school administrators can go through dealing with special needs kids and behavior problem kids. But at the end of the day, I mean, it has to start in the home too, right? So a teacher, school administrator, whoever, principal, whatever, they can sit in training classes for 6 hours. But if that child is not being taught anything at home because of certain circumstances and they're becoming a product of their environment and it's a bad situation, it's not much that training can do, because you have to be in those situations, right? You have to go through those situations to know exactly how to deal with a child who is crying for help in many different ways. But if I would tell school administrators anything, just really try to have empathy for these kids coming from these different backgrounds and different environments, because they don't want to be there.
It's true, unfortunately.
Just to be completely honest with you, they don't want to be there. Kids are becoming more aware and smarter by the day without schooling. And like the first grade to 12th grade educational loophole that we send kids through, it does the majority of us some good, but it's a disservice to a lot of us because we need more than that. A kid that has to figure out at 12 and 13 how they're going to feed their little brother, little sister, he or she is not worried about algebra and walking in a single file line. So they, if anything, just have empathy, really know about the environment that you are teaching in, really know about the kids that you are teaching, and be as compassionate as possible to each child's situation if you can. If it doesn't, if you know, if it's not a detriment to your health, your safety, anything like that, be as compassionate and be as empathetic as possible.
For me, whenever I get a new set of kids in the classroom, I always like to find out, okay, what are you involved with? Do you have any community things? Like, say you're into sport, say you're into arts, say you're into something that is outside of school. I like to get out into my community, see my kids doing something, let them see my face, that I'm out there. And not all teachers have the opportunity because I don't have children. My classroom is my children, as I call it. And getting into your community is so important to be able to see kind of what's going on. And if your student can see you out there, say at their baseball game, if you're just sitting out there in the crowd, you don't have to go up and talk to parents, talk to kids. You can say, hey, I'm here visually. I see that you're doing something. I acknowledge that. The next day you come into school and you say, hey, Johnny, dude, I saw that you got that assist on throwing to second base and got that guy out. That was amazing. And that changes a day. Johnny may sleep in your class the rest of the day. He may need to sleep. He may need to have that sleep. You don't know.
You don't
Try
know.
to have that conversation before class, after class. Contact your counselors. Talk to your counselor at school because they probably know a lot more. And I always try to keep food in my classroom. And I don't care if you are rich kid or look rich on the outside, you're a poor kid, you look poor on the outside, you don't know what's going on in someone's life. And I don't care if you come up and ask me for food, I'm going to give it to you no matter what, because I'm not going to question it. Because at the end of the day, if I'm questioning it, then that's going to continue to push them forward of, oh man, that's another person that's judging me. One more person that's going to push it out. And I'm not saying all teachers do this, but I think I would love to see more of that. I would love to see more of that because I have students that, for me, the biggest thing is I want to see in 10 years. I want to see in 5 years, you come up and go, hey, Mr. Curtis, I remember when you showed up down the hallway, you saw me just up against the locker crying, or you saw me walking the hallway and you gave me a fist bump, or you said, hey, but you changed, like you changed my day. I thank you for that. And if every teacher can act that way in some small aspect, it could be able to change a whole entire person's life and a whole entire direction.
Very true. Very true. At the end of the day, it is about just being a human being and knowing that other human beings have issues and they're going through it. And especially, I mean, listen, I don't know any person ever who said, yo, I enjoyed my time in middle school.
Gosh, that's the hardest time.
Even the best kids with the 4.0 GPAs and the great successful career, they did not have a good time in middle school, right?
Middle school's hard, and that's one reason why I enjoy teaching it in a weird, odd way.
Right.
I think that kind of sounds like a masochist. I enjoyed the abuse, but it's at the end of the day, I enjoy that age because I want to try to give that one student something.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to give them something that they can look back on and say, man, my middle school sucked, but Mr. Curtis, that guy, like, he tried. Like, I could tell he looked at it for me.
That's what you're looking for in middle school, is a foundation and identity. And that's why it's so topsy-turvy for a lot of people. But no, I mean, you hit on a lot of good points, and I mean, you spoke nothing wrong right there.
Yeah. And here's the one that comes up the most, that becomes the issue with discipline is in school, out of school suspension, lunch detention, after school. How do you think that affects the psychology of a student? as a child, as a teenager.
That's part of the school to prison pipeline, the whole detention thing, right? And isolation and excluding from going forward and enjoying what the regular kids are doing or what the general population, to speak in prison terms, are doing. And that's the beginning of it. And it's a real mind fuck, to be honest with you, because if you're always in isolation, on suspension, on punishment, or something like that, like, it starts to get to your head, especially if you're not comfortable with yourself, right?
That's very true.
And early in the game as children, if we're comfortable with ourselves or not. For me, raising all the boys that I have, my two oldest boys, I would put them on punishment when they, acted up. I would put them on punishment. But like day 2, day 3, I would tell them they could come out into the living room and like sit off to the side. So they just would not be in the back. My wife used to call me, she used to say I was a softie for that. But it's the truth, because I mean, if I say you got a week of punishment, you do. You have a week of punishment. No TV, no outside, no game. You're on full restriction. But I don't want you to not interact with the family. We know what you did. You effed up. You shouldn't have did what you did. I told you probably about 7 times before you did it not to do it. But at the same time, you're going to have to suffer those consequences. But I do not want to block you off from us having whatever type of conversation we're having, laughing, joking. If we're planning to do something that weekend or something like that, you don't need to be isolated and treated like you're not a part of the family. And so, like I said, day 2, day 3, I would be like, all right, y'all come on in the living room, you sit over there. No, you can't watch TV and stuff like that, but you can still interact with us.
Still be there.
Yeah, still be there. And so, and I did that because it is mentally taxing. I wasn't the best kid coming up. I had a hard ass head, and I spent a little time on punishment. I spent a couple summers on punishment, and it was isolation, exclusion from what was going on or whatever. And thank God I was good with myself, and I could sit with myself and conjure up all type of imaginations and had my toys and whatnot. But for somebody who's not as mentally strong, for a lot of people who are not as mentally strong, it's definitely not a good thing.
Being with yourself is hard.
Yeah, being
really
with yourself is hard. And it's resentment that grows. People grow resentment for themselves. People grow resentment for the people who said they were on in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, lunch suspension. They grow resentment for the people who are not in trouble all the time. They grow resentment for the people who are doing good all the time. And it's a little bit of not being able to take accountability for your actions and be responsible for your actions. But it falls into the thing of not seeing positive things around you or whatever. Yeah, it can be mentally taxing for sure if you're always isolated and excluded from just your daily social activities with your classmates and whatnot.
Yeah, because I always find that struggle with out of school suspension. I get there is a place for it, and there's a point for it to be having out of school suspensions, like having to arrest somebody inside of school if the severity level is high enough. But as we talked about earlier, you don't know what's going on at home with that child that's been suspended. You don't know if that parent is having to take off from work now, whenever that kid's at home, and that kid may be getting beat because they came home and they found out they got suspended, or now they're saying, hey, you're out of the house. We're kicking you out of the house. This is the 3rd time you've been suspended out. We ain't got time for you. We're going to kick you out. We're going to push you out. And that leads to, again, that mental process that I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I can't do that. I've been kicked out of school. They don't want me at school now anyway. What's the point for me going back? Mm-hmm. And as well with the perpetuating motions of it's happened once, it's going to happen again. Where am I going where I'm accepted? And people are susceptible to winding up in really crappy situations because people may look at them and go, okay, they're a little unstable, but I can provide some safe and some environment for you, but it may be a trap.
Yeah.
In school suspension, I run into the trouble of that kid is now behind in the classroom.
Definitely.
And you may take them down work and they're not going to probably get it because they're not the concepts, they haven't learned it in the classroom in the first place.
It's not the same.
And that's hard. Some things that I think is good and bad, if the kid's still in your classroom, I know a lot of people are not fond of, hey, I have a desk at the back of the room or I have a desk over in the corner, but maybe that is a form of in-school suspension, that they're still in the classroom. They can still hear kind of what's going on. They're still present, but it's letting them know, hey, you do have something that we need to work on here. And whenever you're ready to join back into the group here, like you said, with having like, hey, your child's in the room, they're here. I'm not letting them away from everything, but they got to be back there in that corner for a little bit and work their way back in because they need to know that punishment.
Definitely.
That's hard for a school district as well to make those decisions. Administrators, I couldn't be an administrator to save my life on it. I mean, I wouldn't be able, I already have problems not being able to sleep at night because of how much I care for my kids and trying to figure that out. But
see, that's
hard.
That's the hard work that needs to be done, right? And that's why I say, do they really want to do that hard work? Because that is a lot of time. That's not even going to take money, right? But that's going to take time and a lot of studying and a lot of focusing and a lot of community outreach. And a lot of people that are school administrators just don't care that much.
Yeah, you have those that really do, that are amazing. And unfortunately, you have those that are unfortunately collecting the paycheck. Exactly.
For the 5 that are there that are amazing, you have 20 who are just collecting a paycheck, and they truly do not care about the community that they're in. They don't care about the kids that they're teaching. If they're on a school board, they do not care. And it shows across this nation, from top to bottom, east to west, north to south. It shows that there are so many school administrators that don't care and don't care about doing the heavy lifting. So they would much rather leave the bad behavior kids in the class with the good behavior kids. They would rather sequester the bad behavior kids all in a corner in a trailer behind the school or something like that, with one teacher who is fighting for his or her life, instead of getting real help and getting a whole group, a whole team together throughout the school, taking care of situations like this. You don't see that. And I mean, it's easier to, as the age-old saying is, sweep it under the rug. True enough, look, we're going to look at the rug and be like, why the hell is it piled up over there in that one area? But more people are going to walk around it and step on it rather than lift up the rug and see the dirt that's under it. So once somebody is willing to lift up the entire rug and clean the dirt from under it, then you're going to have these type of situations all the time.
Yeah, and it's compounding.
Yes.
Constantly. And that's, constantly. I can't remember what the numbers were compared to 1990s, which is 30 years ago. Thinking about that. Wow. That's 30 years ago. 1990 to modern day, the number has almost doubled and a little bit more for what you're seeing for juvenile delinquency inside their facilities of students between the ages of 14 to 17. Because at 17, you're going into the general population in some areas.
Yes.
And that number is atrocious to think about that.
Very true.
One thing that I'm going to make a commentary here in the school districts that not everybody's, you mentioned earlier, college bound. Not every student's college bound.
Right.
Not every student is, we're not pushing enough with trades in our schools. We're not pushing enough with the technical track programs. I have family members and I have good friends that are in these jobs that are making triple what I'm making.
Right.
And they graduated with a GED, or they graduated out of 300, they graduated 289. It does not mean that school was just not for them. And it was not catered to what their capabilities were to do so. When we're taking arts back out of schools and not funding them properly in the best way, we're taking out mechanics shop, we're taking out wood shop, we're taking about metals. Right. When we're taking that stuff out, that's an opportunity for someone to maybe find something. And I get, whenever we hear the word union at times in certain states, people get scared because of the right to work state, and people afraid that I'm going to throw the word out there, communism of, it's all unity of this, and that runs the problems. But really, in some of these trade union areas, 50 is the age right now, average age of some of these workers that are going to be retiring in the next 10 years or so. You need that next generation to step up, to be building your buildings, to putting in your AC units, building up walls around your house, being able to build your schools, being able to pave your roads in the construction sites. That's not a negative thing by any means.
No, not at all.
But I feel like in the school districts, a lot of the time, we're trying to push them into college. We're trying to push that route. And the kids that are honors AP, we give them so much attention, saying, praise them for all that push. And we look down on those general ed kids, and we look down on those kids that have an IEP or a 504. And whenever looked down upon, that leads to the beginning processes of, I'm not good enough. What
Yeah.
can I do?
Very true. So you take how I came up a little bit. in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And so I came up around like three sides of family, right? My stepfather's side of the family, majority of them are well-rounded people for the most part, military, good jobs, so forth and so on. My mom's side of the family, like I said, a lot of entrepreneurs and whatnot, military as well, a little more on the wild side, party side and whatnot. Then I like to call him my sperm donor, if you will.
Okay.
My sperm donor side of the family, they were make it the best way they know how to. My aunt Sheila, she's wonderful. She runs a monopoly board. She owns so much property in Philadelphia where we grew up at in 52nd and Chestnut and all that or whatever. She owns a bunch of property. So she did pretty good for herself. But for the most part, like the men on that side of the family, they were get by. So my expectations coming up in inner city Philadelphia, late 80s, 90s and whatnot, our life expectation is 17, 18 years old. Dropout rate, very high, even at that time. For me, at 39, I definitely feel like I'm blessed to be here because I have seen the other side, the worst side, the bad side of things. And when the expectation is set so high around you, but it's little to no expectation for you, your self-esteem, it starts to eat away and wither away a little bit. A lot of people are not strong enough to withstand that type of pressure, whatever. So I understand completely where you're coming from, for sure.
And inner city schools are the biggest problem with that pipeline.
Yes.
When you get into these inner cities, in those schools, they need, in my opinion, more support than your out of inner city schools when it comes to getting more nonprofits into the building, more resources pushed in. I would give up more of my paycheck to see those schools that need more help
Right.
to those kids.
Right.
Because I hate hearing the terms of when someone goes, I will never let my kids live in this city, or I will never be able to, I'll send my kids to private school because the local school is terrible.
Right.
Everybody doesn't have that option.
No.
Not everyone has that capabilities to say, we're going to move or we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And when you have that stigma on your school already, you're already setting that kid up in another direction of I'm not good enough.
No question. No question. And so everybody doesn't have that option, or it's either everybody doesn't feel as though they have that option, because we started our family in West Virginia. I had moved to West Virginia with my immediate family, mid-90s, late 90s, mid-90s, finished high school there. Miss Payne, she has family from West Virginia. And so we met in West Virginia. We started our family in West Virginia, but Southern West Virginia is like one of the worst places that you can try to raise a family. And it's no disrespect, but it's the truth. It's one of the poorest states in America. West Virginia is, and Southern West Virginia, Mercer County area and whatnot, they're bad off with businesses, schools and whatnot. And this is, like I said, this is no shot of disrespect to the area, but it's simply because their legislators and their local and state government don't care. But coming up in that area and in Philadelphia, I told myself that I would dare not have my kids grow up how I did. And I didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of money, but I knew that we had to raise them somewhere different and show them something different. And so it's all about your want to as well, because like I said, I know we didn't have a lot of money to make it happen, but I had to make sure they didn't see anything that I went through, inside or outside. We haven't been a perfect family by any means, but the stuff that I seen, the stuff that I went through, and the stuff that a lot of my close friends seen and went through, my kids never have, never will. So it's all about how much you want it, how much you want to show your kids and your family something different at the end of the day, because if you really want to pick up and leave and change your situation, you will. That's for real.
And there's a lot of amazing teachers that work in these districts where students are struggling and the teachers are given their all. And thank you for those that are hearing this, that are in these schools. And unfortunately, there's within these schools as well, teachers get into them and they're gone within a year or they're gone within 2 years. And a lot of good teachers that are given their heart and souls don't make it 5 years because their hands get tied with what they cannot do in the classroom. And they want to give their heart and soul into it, and they're not able to. And sometimes in the classrooms as teachers, we see some stuff that just blows our minds. And sometimes we need as well a little bit of support to help us to know what we can do and how we can be able to help our students as well. I'm not saying that we don't get the training. We do get some training, but it's not the same as being inside that classroom or being inside that child's homes and seeing it firsthand. You can't experience it. The teachers have mental health issues too, as much as students do coming into it. And it's unfortunate that some of the best teachers walk away before they ever get the opportunity to fully help those students the best that they fully can.
Truth.
And that makes me sad seeing that. And especially in the inner cities, the turnover rates are extremely high.
Yes.
About 60, 70% in school districts are done. 70% in 5 years. The number is getting higher and higher in these bigger cities and also outside of the bigger cities, inside of smaller communities and stuff. Teachers are not making as long as they used to. And I'm not saying it's lack of support or pay or curriculum and stuff changing, but something's got to break. Something's got to change here in order for this entire school system as a whole. I'm saying federal, state, local. We're in a transition period that it needs to somehow change.
Well, teachers, first of all, I thank you and appreciate you for teachers that care. I can definitely tell that you're one of the teachers that care a lot about your students and about their well-being, for sure. You guys need to be compensated more. Simple. Like I said, it doesn't matter how much training you do and whatnot. You guys definitely need to be compensated more. But that goes for, across the board, firefighters need to be compensated more.
Yes, police officers at times.
Police officers need to be compensated more, and they definitely need better training. Police officers do with de-escalation and whatnot. But for teachers, you guys are the ones who are truly, truly on the front lines.
We see some of these kids more than their parents see.
You definitely
their
do.
Kids.
And sometimes you have deeper conversations with them as well. And you establish a stronger relationships with them. And so you guys need to be compensated more for that. You guys need to be recognized more for that. And you just need more help, period.
You mentioned we were talking about when we got into firefighters, police. I'm going to move back to the conversation a little bit with the police. Working with adults and working with children, two different mindsets that you got to look at. In school police source officers have a lot of great training before they can become in a school district. And at times when you're calling in a backup or calling in somebody extra to come into your school that is works for the county rather than working for the county schools, I feel like there is a drop in understanding of a student's age with how to work with a child's age rather than working with an adult. And that's something that I think needs to be addressed when working with just a child in general. It's drastically different. And I've seen personally where a situation as a de-escalation, they didn't have the right training and it blew up the situation 10 times more than it could have been. And I'm not sure exactly what can be done to help that, because some school districts are not lucky to have school resources officers.
Yeah, true.
They are just, hey, we can't afford it. They've got to come straight. Whenever we call 911, they're coming straight in.
They're coming straight in, yeah. I think that should be like a given. Every school should have a resource officer. It shouldn't be up to the school to pay for a resource officer. It should be 2 officers at the school.
Each individual school. Each individual school. They shouldn't have to share 3 or 4 schools.
No, they should not. It should be 2 police officers at each individual school across the United States of America. And they should be properly trained in de-escalation, first-person shooter, anything. They need to have a sector for that, right? Like, you're coming to be a police officer, but you're coming to be a police officer for the school system.
For school system, for students. And some counties have that. That do have, but not all counties are fortunate enough to have that.
So, and I think they need to make that like a common thing, a nationwide thing for sure.
You have the microphone right now. What is something that if you're speaking to a legislator, a governor, a mayor, a congressman, what is something you would want to say to them of something that they can be able to maybe do to help us out, maybe a piece of legislation or something? What would you recommend? That's a hard question.
Wake up your coworkers. Tell them to go stay the night in the communities that they govern. Tell them to eat at the restaurants in the communities that they govern. Tell them to go sit in the schools for 2-3 days on end and see exactly what's taking place. Go to the housing projects. Go to the poor rural areas. Go to the inner cities and see the disadvantage that a 700-year ideology has put your nation at. You know, like I said before in the last episode, there are winners or losers, and you can't force somebody to want to do good and see the correct path. But when you've put nothing but the bad in front of someone, then you can't be perplexed on how you get 7, 8, 9, 10 generations of fuck ups and people who don't care, people who question authority, people who drop out of school, abuse drugs, so forth and so on. So that's what I would say to them. There's no talking that can be done. There's no campaign that you can run. You have to go see why this is happening. You have to know that what you like to call critical race theory is American history, and this is the end result of your American history. When they were making legislations up for certain groups of people not to be able to do certain things and go certain places and take advantage of certain programs, this is exactly what you get. Unstableness. Is it a trough? A larger group or trough of young black males and young brown males getting arrested daily, and they're not even 17 years old yet because they have no guidance and no mentorship. And yes, it starts in a home, but if you made it to where they had no home, if you made it to where they had the bare minimum, then I suggest you go see why for real and not pay attention to a study, right? Damn your studies, damn your college studies, damn your reports. Go see for yourself. Look struggle in the eye for real. Look despair in the eye for real. And once you do that, then your thought process might change.
Powerful words. Like, powerful words right there that I hope it finds not deaf ears.
Hopefully.
Whenever something is listening to them, I'm hoping somebody give you the opportunity to step out and do something. I'm hoping maybe this will find the next person that's going to run for office. Or, hey, I'm going to get up off sitting on the couch and I'm going to show up at my congressman's. I'm going to show up and I'm going to send maybe write a letter. Maybe I'm going to go attend a meeting somewhere, because the less informed we are, the more this becomes an issue as well. And if we allow someone to speak for us, we need to know what they're speaking about, why they're speaking about, and stepping up and saying, hey, I don't like that, or I do like that about you. But you look at these meetings, who's in the audience? 10 people, 15 people.
Very true.
No one's there.
Very true.
And unfortunately, what I'm finding a lot of, people looking at their social media, they're seeing short clips. They're not seeing the full picture of what's out there. And no one's picking up a local newspaper and seeing what's happening in their community, of, like you said, of knocking on doors,
right,
talking to these individuals about anything, about guidance and things. We're not letting these nonprofits that really could be doing some change
very true
into the schools. Earlier episode, I talked to 2 different individuals about nonprofits, and there's a lack of funding into them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to bring that back up right now. Your nonprofits have better intentions because they are a non-profit.
Yes.
Some programs that we get into schools, there's an agenda.
Mm-hmm. Always.
There's money to be made. There's a contract that's out there for the better or for worse. And there's, I think, for legislation-wise, allowing some of these programs, yes, filter them, do whatever you need to be able to do before letting them into a school. I get it, 110%. More programs after schools for students at the school. Provide transportation for those kids home as well. Not every child has a ride home. Not everyone has the opportunity to be a part of that school's sports team.
Very true.
And yes, you have your local youth programs that are available at the schools, at the elementary school programs that do baseball, basketball, all that different stuff that you can be able to join those leagues. But what about our art programs?
Right.
What about, besides the marching band or concert bands, what about maybe groups that are wanting to do, hey, I just want to learn how to play guitar.
Right.
Or, hey, I want to learn how to cook.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I want to do that. I get we have our boys and girls clubs. Love my boys and girls clubs. Amazing. You have after school programs at elementary schools where kids can be able to stay late and parents can be able to come pick them up later in the afternoons when they get home from work. I think we should have more something like that in our middle schools and high schools as well.
For sure.
But maybe with the mentorships like you did and do, and when you pick up 5-10 kids, you're talking with them, you're talking to adults at the same age, allow parents to be able to come into the school maybe and sit with their kids in the classroom and see what their kids doing maybe inside a classroom if they have the opportunity to.
And see, that's the thing. So I know a lot of people that worked in the school system for many years. And that's why I'll always stress what starts in the home first, because you have a lot of parents that don't care as well. And they are more concerned, like we spoke last episode about what's going on with social media and whatnot. You have a lot of deadbeat parents out here, even if it's not grandma and it is mom or dad or mom and dad raising their kids. Always give the parent the opportunity. But the thing about it is that has always been an opportunity for a parent to come sit in the classroom with their kid, to come to the PTO meetings, participate. So that's why I said it's a lot of heavy lifting that needs to be done, because you have to go, like the legislatures and the school administrators, like they have to really see what's going on. They have to know that, okay, we're in an apartment, a complex or housing project. Apartment 151, their kids are always at school. They're doing as good as they can. They might not have all the clothes and they might not even smell as good, but they're doing all that they can because the parent cares, right? Even though they're in a bad situation. But apartment 153, they don't care. Kids are up all night. They're outside all night. When they're in school, they're not paying attention. They're focused on everything else and everyone else. And so when you have that mixture, right, of parent and child, then it comes down to, okay, let's get into the community and see what's going on. Okay. Apartment 151, they need help just with societal things, right? And a little funds here and more time, maybe a little education on how to get a better job, cleaning habits, so forth and so on. But 153, they need help with the parents that are in the home and the children that are in the home. The parents need to know self-discipline. They need to probably some type of parents in class. The kid is going to have to be retaught.
Yes.
From everything.
Because they need the example.
You understand what I'm saying?
They're seeing what's being happened to them and they're absorbing it.
So they need to be retaught. And so that's all a part of the heavy lifting.
Also true words right there. This conversation is amazing as an educator, as you as a parent, and the communities that we've kind of grew up on. This is the conversations that I think that need to be had more often with everyone, just in general. So I'm glad that we're getting to have this. As we're coming here towards an end, is there anything that you else want to add? Any advice you want to throw down that over the last 2 episodes, perhaps that we haven't discussed, or that you just want to leave our audience with?
Well, of course, I just definitely want to say thank you again for having me on your show.
Oh, it's more than an honor.
It's a complete honor, man. I appreciate you guys for listening in. Hopefully I was able to give a little bit of insight on my life and things I went through and things I've experienced and my perspective on the topics at hand. For the topic tonight, only thing I would say to parents, don't give up on your kids. Go into the schools and see what they have going on. Don't be too quick to judge the troubled teen, male, female, white or black or whatever. Don't be too quick to judge them, because you never know what they have going on at home. To legislators, school administrators, and people who make the decisions, it's a lot of people out here that are hurting with no direction. and it starts in a few places, and you guys are one of the places it starts, and it's going to have to be a lot of heavy lifting if you want anything to change in your state and in your school system as far as number of graduates, GPAs going up, just good people being put out in society. So you're going to have to do a whole lot of heavy lifting and come about your offices and your chambers and just passing along the policies that really don't do anything for anyone. Other than that, man, like I said, you guys can find me on basically all social media platforms as Paron Jamal, PARON_JAMAAL. As far as my label and my service company, we have a lot of things going on here in Athens, and we'll continue to have things going on here in Athens with the blessings of the Almighty and blessings of health and time and life and healthy life. But other than that, you guys, you stay wise, stay focused, always question authority. Don't give up on yourself, and have a purpose behind everything you do. I appreciate it. Peace out.
Great words, great guests, great conversation. Couldn't have asked for the closure of a better visit to Athens, Georgia, where I graduated in 2011. I'm getting to catch back up with a longtime friend, combatant on the fantasy football field. In just
For sure.
life leads you in a lot of directions, and you'll find people at different times in your life, and it was the right time for us to get back up and just be able to talk. And I encourage that to every listener of sit back, listen, talk, observe. Those are the best things that are out there that we have given the opportunity to do every day when you wake up in the morning and when you go to sleep at night, be able to get ready to do it over again. If you want to reach out to me, I could be found on Facebook, Learning from Friends, on Twitter, Learning from Friends Podcast. You can email me at Cade, which is spelled CADE, at learningfromfriends.com. Share the podcast. Listen to previous episodes. Pick and choose what you would like. I'm on all platforms. So if you're like, hey, my friend's like, I only listen to Google, or I only listen to Spotify, I'm there. You can find me and be able to listen. I'm honored that we're coming up on a year soon and that I've had this much listenership. I've had this many countries that I've gotten into, and it's a continual blessing. So I appreciate all of that every single day that I get to do this. As you all know, as we get ready to leave out here, that I have continual listeners. My name is Cade Curtis, your tour guide on this lovely adventure that I like to call Learning from Friends. And as we leave today, don't forget, let your curiosity fly high.